So just as we got our first customer, COVID happened, and then we had to wait another 2 years till things opened up. But within COVID, the whole world changed. I think as Indians, I think human race looks only for love, appreciation, and care. Honestly, when I really went to business school, it was more traumatic because I could only see a lot of flaws in our systems. When I started asking questions, obviously there were challenges for him. Why are you questioning something that's already working?
Hi, Ankul. Welcome to the Harmonious Workplaces podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you on our show. Thank you so much for sparing time. And over the next few hours, maybe let's go through your journey. I'm very keen to know your journey as an entrepreneur and as a person who's handling a couple of businesses. So, thank you so much.
Awesome. Sailesh, thank you for having me over on your podcast and looking forward to sharing my journey for the last 20 years of being a family managed business owner and now managing a professionally run tech company. It feels great to be on your podcast. I'm happy to share my journey. So please shoot and let's begin.
Yeah, so the first thing I'm really keen to know about is your family managed business and what are you into and how did you kind of get into that business? Obviously, being a part of the family, but how was that journey of integrating into that business?
Sure. So I'll take you back a little to my childhood, school, and college. So I'm a Bombay boy, brought up in Bombay, went to school in Bombay, did my college in Bombay, and did my postgrad from SPGen in the Family Managed Business Program. Most of my family at the time was staying abroad, so I had a chance, I was given the luxury to choose whether I wanted to join the family business or pursue education abroad and live the life of a working professional. So I scored well in my grade 10, and I had option to get into science or business. So though I was encouraged to take up science, I think the entrepreneurial blood in my veins sort of made me decide that I'll go to science as to commerce. Honestly, at that point in time, I just didn't want to do any more chemistry, which I was very bad at. So that was the reason I actually didn't take up science. But my love for numbers was, I was good at physics. So I decided anyways that I'll follow the business stream, and I did commerce, and then post that I joined SPGen, after which I came to the family business. So my decision was not out of choice, but more out of honestly a process of elimination.
Correct.
In those days, we had very little, choices. It was the smartest guys went to science, the little smarter ones and were willing to work harder went to arts, and the guys who wanted to party went to commerce.
Commerce, is it?
So that's what I exactly did. So I said enough of studying, I want to have some fun. So I ended up in commerce, and then of course I pursued SPGen and then joined the family business. Now, typically being from a Gujarati family business, I was told you can go to college, but you have to start coming to the business to understand. Because in the back of the mind, maybe my dad thought that eventually he might join the business since he's taken up commerce. So I started sort of interning for 4 hours a day at the age of 16. And initially I hated it because that was a condition that my father put. I thought it was very, very regressive of him to do, but today I really value that. So I think the seeds of entrepreneurship were sown during my grade 10 holidays at the age of 16. Going and for the first 1 year, I think I just did observing. I was not allowed to rather interact much with the people who were working. I was treated pretty much like a junior intern. But those were I think the founding years that that helped me today to when I'm in the shoes of a leader. And so that's pretty much my journey as coming from school, college, and business.
But I'm really curious to know that you mentioned you started off you started going to the office at the age of 16, and probably then the people around would have looked at you as one young kid coming in, trying to learn the ropes. And then as you gradually progress into the organization, how was it for you to really uh, get into that power, or but not power, but the position of leadership, and really be looked upon as the person who's going to lead the business? I'm sure there were a lot of senior people around, people who had spent quite a few number of years in the organization. How easy or difficult was that part?
So honestly, what happens is challenge is pretty much less in large business houses, but in a family-run business and MSMEs like us, you don't have a very elaborate middle management. So, like in most family businesses 20, 25 years ago, it was generally the family. They had their trusted managers, and then they had the lower rung of employees or workers.
Correct.
In my case, because it was a manufacturing business, which was offset printing, we had workers, middle level managers or plant managers, and then the owners. Now,
Okay.
in my case, the challenge was not really very large because it was just my dad managing the business, and then he had maybe two or three guys under him, and then there were workers. So I guess when I entered, the threat was not from obviously my dad, but the middle rung two, three guys who probably thought that I'll be challenging a lot about the way they work, the way they conduct, and so on and so forth. From the worker level, is very easy that we have a new
Correct.
boss. We better be nice to him because he's going to be the future. But it's generally earning the trust of the middle guys who are very key to your business, and of course my father. So, and because I had come at a very young age, I had the opportunity to observe how he works, how the processes and systems. And when you do a, uh, I would say, a professional degree, you see flaws into what you see, right? So
Correct.
honestly, when I really went to business school, uh, it was more traumatic because I could only see a lot of flaws in our systems, the way they were run, the way they were managed. But also, you have to appreciate that that is all that parents and managers or business owners at that time knew. They didn't go to business schools. They were not
Correct.
taught management practices. They learned from experience while we were taught by experts, right? So obviously you have to appreciate that. But yes, it was a challenging thing initially. But I think because of my business program, my dad gave me the free hand to experiment whatever I learned in business school, and that was part of my curriculum. So he knew he had to give me that space. And
Mhm.
yes, when you're trying to implement new processes, you see certain benefits. Now, the minute you see benefits as a father, number one, you feel very proud that your son is coming in and taking the effort to change things. When you see those transpiring, either in terms of better performance, output, reduction in costs, better customer experiences, obviously you give more leeway that, okay, go ahead and make some changes because I trust you. So
Correct.
slowly but surely, as we started implementing stuff, right, and we saw results, and those results actually even transpired into numbers, I was able to sort of convince him that we are good to try new things. So then it became a transition wherein people said, he's just not come to change things, he's come here to improve things, right?
Mhm.
And
Correct.
yes, honestly, we had to get rid of both the guys who were very key to my dad
Mhm.
because I realized that they were not willing to change, and that was a bottleneck. So when we
Okay.
decided that okay, we want to change things, I said I can only bring about the change if you support me, and we had a talk with the guys, and we happily let them. So yes, there was a little bit of turmoil like every family business. My dad had to take tough decisions between the younger generation and the older lot. But I guess if you prove your mettle with honesty, I think you definitely would sail through. And that's what eventually did.
Okay. So I'm really curious to know about your leadership style? And did it evolve from what you observed in terms of your dad's style of working, or did you have your individual style molded by the business school, whatever that you learned there? How did your leadership style evolve?
So, as you said, I think when you come out young, you have a mindset of being an owner manager, right? So, there are some decisions you take as an owner, but most of the times you're working as a manager for the basic fundamental because you don't have a larger team. So, from being a peon at a very young age to being the CEO at a much later stage, you have to see it all. And I wouldn't skip any of those things that my dad made me do. And I think that was the foundation of me turning into a leader. And still, I would say it's still learning because I think learning of being a good leader never stops. So,
Absolutely.
so my dad had a very different way of leadership, and I think for the type of business that he was in, which was extremely labor intensive, uh, and at the same time at the scale at which he operated, where you probably couldn't afford to have very large educated managers, you typically become a little autocratic because you're dealing with a mindset who has limited understanding, and
Correct.
you're managing all the roles while you're facing the customer. So you don't have that time to have the understanding the listen, I need the buy-in of the worker, buy-in of my manager. You just say, this is what I'm telling you to do, that's what you got to do. And that,
Correct.
he managed us almost 40 years till I stepped in. Right.
Yeah.
So it was almost like do as directed till I came in and when I started questioning things. So I think my first, impression was that no one asked him questions. It was done like pretty much as a set formula. If this happens, this is the output, no questions asked.
Right.
When I started asking questions, obviously there were challenges for him. Why are you questioning something that's already working? And that was my first learning that, there's a lovely book, a very simple book called Who Moved My Cheese, wherein you have a certain kind of mindset. And before you know, someone has come and moved the cheese because you're not smelling it enough. You feel this is the only way of doing it, and someone else has taken your cheese away because you ignored it and took it for granted. So I think my first learning was to, ask a lot of questions, observe, soak things in, but at the back end, make your notes as to why and what if. So it started with that as a young manager, or I would say an intern. And then slowly, when I made changes, that obviously that was a mix of my experiences, my learnings, and my observations. So there's a big change of I would say management between my dad and me. He was very hands on. I'm extremely hands off. I follow a hands off, eyes on policy, wherein I do very little, but I observe everything. So I play a role more of an observer and try to see if there are gaps in the system and try to fix them before they start affecting the customer experience. But I still don't really tell people this is a formula. You need to do that. You just create a system, you follow a system, you bring to my notice challenges, we discuss them, we implement a change after identifying what is a problem. You realign it, you re-observe, and if it works, continue. If it doesn't, you go back to, okay, why it's not working and fix it again. So it's more of a collaborative effort rather than me offering a solution without having my team having thought to. So sometimes, even if I have a solution, till the time I know it's not affecting the customer adversely, I will give them a timeline that, okay, we need to fix this in the next 24, 48, 72 hours, maybe a week, and then wait for an answer from them. So I try to make it a little more collaborative. So you have their buy-in, you have their respect, you know that, they feel that they're valued, and that's a more sustainable way of managing.
That Ankul brings me to the organizational culture bit, right? And how has that transitioned in the organization since you've taken over, and what has been your emphasis on in terms of creating a culture that's kind of from an employee point of view or from a client point of view or from any stakeholder point of view? What have you specifically looked at?
So, very early on in business school, they said you need to define uh, a policy to align everybody to the same goal. Because many a times, larger corporations have very formal onboarding sort of mechanism, wherein people are given training before they are inducted, they are aligned as to what the business is, does, and endeavors to do, and what is expected out of them to achieve an organization goal. Sadly, that we as MSME companies may not have a very formal induction process. Number one, we are very
Correct.
happy that someone is willing to join us first, right?
Absolutely.
And then we're very excited to bring them on and make them feel good. But what we forget is that in our excitement, we are just welcoming the guy without telling him what is expected of him, right? So our onboarding is sort of very weak, I would say, at least in the MSME right sector. So
Correct.
very early on in business school, they said that if you want to have everyone aligned to an organization goal, you need to define what is the organization's goal. So, what is your core purpose of existence? What is your vision? What is your mission? What are your values? Because if that is stated, written, and communicated regularly, at some point that will become a mindset of everybody working in the organization.
Correct.
Now, that repeatedly being followed or being pointed out at creates a culture that if transparency, let's say, is what's one of our core values. Now, if everybody reads it when they come to office because it's written on the wall, or we have a vision card that we read twice a week, everyone together at the factory as well as the office, and you assemble at a particular time and spend 2 minutes reading on the vision card,
Mhm.
it in a way, aligns everybody or reminds them that, this is what we are, this is what we do, this is what we're here for, this is what we stand by and stand for. So let's work within the values or the core purpose to ensure that we deliver what we want to promise. So I think it's very important for organizations to have a core purpose, define a core values, and have it repeatedly reinforced into their workforce, their junior management, middle management, and top management, right?
Correct.
So that you can align everybody, and then you will see that, those this practice does affect people positively. That if your core values transparent, that guy will think twice before telling a customer that tempo nikal chuka hai while the tempo is still in the factory,
Correct.
right? These are small things that happen
Correct.
very, very frequently in our industry, where the customer calls us and what's about my delivery? Sir, wo to subah nikal chuka hai. But the thing is still in process or just about to leave. So
Mm-hmm.
when you actually process this and every day reinforce, the guy at some point will say, I'm reading this out. It's so conflicting.
Correct.
Let's just tell the customer the truth, get the courage. And
Absolutely.
we have tried to push our people that you say it as it is. Even if there are brickbacks, we're okay to take it. But the customer will appreciate at some point that at least you're not giving me a story, right? So I think these are the things that really help align. We see that in larger organizations, and we should all accept that even smaller organizations, could be even a five-member team, can live by the values or the core purpose that they define for themselves.
Absolutely. So, Uncle, you also mentioned about the learning process as a leader and your emphasis on and your kind of investment of time and effort in terms of building a system where learning is important. So, how does that kind of translate into one, your own process of learning and keeping that continuous improvement happening, and second is how it does it translate to with your team? How do you play that?
So, one thing that I lack, I think, as a um student of leadership, I think, is my passion for reading. Though I respect and love, I would be a great reader, but reading is just something that I really, really put a lot of effort to. So I know people who read a book every 15 days. It takes me 3 months to complete a single book because
Okay.
I just don't have that love, and I have a lot of respect for reading. I just don't have the passion to sit down and read a book.
Absolutely.
So, the only option I have uh, to learn and keep myself updated is through high level of observation. So I observe the people I look up to. I follow what they're doing. Podcast is a great way. I really enjoy that about listening to biographies, interviews. So I learn a lot from people who inspire me, successful leaders, young startup founders are my great inspiration. I keep on telling my team, I just wish I was 10 years younger with the same level of wisdom I have today, I would be in a different trajectory, right? But that's always wishful thinking. But the kind I see the young startup founders, what they're doing is absolutely phenomenal. What sort of surprises me is the level of maturity, clarity, and the wisdom that they bring into their startups and add so much value. But for coming back to where do I get the learning is mainly a lot of observing from, as I said, people I look up to, customers, friends. Uh, I read a few books, and the pages of a book really excite me. The minute you tell me it's a 600-page book, it becomes a big thing. But the minute you tell me it's, 200, 250, it perks my interest. So
Correct.
I try to read. I try to watch a lot of YouTube channels. I also try to engage with a lot of progressive associations like Ascent, TIE, SASTER, which probably would add value to my business. So that keeps me sort of connected with the industry that I'm in and get to learn by meeting very young and progressive leaders. So that's my way of getting. I get sort of. I think I'm someone who gets a little bored by getting knowledge from one stream. So a book is my only way of getting knowledge. I think I would get a little fatigue. But if I'm doing multiple things of meeting different people and being an extrovert, I just love meeting people. So for me, learning is through just interacting with great minds because that sort of stimulates me. And so I think that would be my go-to
Interesting.
for upskilling myself.
So you mentioned you read or you follow certain leaders, read their biographies or follow podcasts. Any particular role model, any particular leaders whom you follow and try to learn from them?
So I mean, I'm a great uh, fan of what Mukesh Ambani has done, and not by what he says because he doesn't give a lot of podcasts, but I follow his business strategy very closely. He's someone who really inspires, like a billion other people. He's extremely forward looking because what I hear is that he's someone who's uh, 10 years ahead of the timeline, right? So
Absolutely.
today, when we talk of business planning, if I'm looking at 2025, 26, he's someone who's looking at 2045 today, right? So what his
Correct.
company is going to be doing 15 years from now, that's absolutely phenomenal. I don't have any specific role models, but I'm excited to listen to any good leader, right?
Yeah.
Who has a clear vision for his organization, for the industry, and is open to sharing. So I follow a lot of leaders, a lot of podcasts. So not one particular, but I sort of like to follow what they are, what everyone has to share because I don't think one guy can really share it all. There are tons of people who have a lot of knowledge to share. So you
Sure.
pick up bits and pieces from a lot of guys.
Okay, so that brings me to your next venture, and really something that I've been wanting to ask you. The new venture that you have is a tech venture, right? It's a tech startup. What was the inspiration there? Why did you get into tech? You mentioned you're not a tech guy yourself. What really brought you there, and how did that take shape?
Okay, so as you know, I get this asked very often, and I would like to say that I was extremely fortunate uh, to have got into this at a very right time. But the seeds of this were typically sown in 2012,
Mhm.
right? And this happened to be a magazine that I read when I was traveling for one of a business exhibition to Europe.
Mhm.
And I picked up a magazine at the airport which said that, and it was a print expo. So everything in that city was around that particular fair. So at one of the bookstores, I picked up a book which says ordering of print is going to be via the internet. And that sort of intrigued me because I was so used to calling up people and 10 calls to close one order. While here it says everything will be done online. And that was my
Correct.
first seed. And I picked up that magazine. As my reading skills, I read about a page of that and then I left it on the aircraft. But the thought that the internet is going to take over the ordering of printing stayed within me. Now, when I came back to India and I started, just it was in my head. And then, as luck would have it, one customer called me one day and said, "Listen, we are growing and we have plans to grow manifold times in the next 1 or 2 years. How can we streamline your ordering process via the internet?" And that sort of sparked a thought or an opportunity. And I started working towards building something in 2012. By the time we had a product ready and we went to market, realized there were no takers for obvious reasons because no one had heard of ordering online. Internet penetration was a big thing, and ordering was over the internet was something because we had no
Correct.
Amazons and Flipkarts at the time. So we had to typically, shut the business down and put it in cold storage. And then, 2019, I got a call from a customer that I had made a presentation to in 2014 and said, "Can we have a look at your deck?" And we showed it to him, and that's how we had our first sign up in 2019. Obviously, we couldn't start with that version because it was 2012. The tech stack was very old, so we had to redo and everything. And then, when we were supposed to go live, COVID happened. So just as we got our first customer, COVID happened, and then we had to wait another 2 years till things opened up. But within COVID, the whole world changed. Everyone wanted to do everything
Absolutely.
online, and there were lots of opportunities in different business processes that came up. And from one service, we were able to create 4 services during the last, maybe 3 or 4 years. And we only institutionalized the business in September 2022. So almost 10 years after the seed was sown is, when we were able to go to market. It's a B2B SaaS enterprise digital management platform. It's called SprintCart.
Mhm.
And we offer 4 basic services on that. One is enterprise procurement, wherein you could catalog everything that your offices, branches would require for a daily business function. And you could catalog it, order it, approval, or the complete process, and we manage the last mile delivery. Second, we have a digital marketing repository, which is called DigiSafe, wherein you can park all your digital assets. And by digital assets, we mean anything like as simple as a Word document and as complicated as a business deck or even an MP4. Anything that can help you sell, right? Which offers co-branding and multiple other
Correct.
services, but which is more focused to channel partners and sales teams and so on and so forth. The third one is again a very unique product, which is the NFC business card, which is a contactless business card, where we build customer journeys from introduction to sharing product catalogs to sharing what is your business proposition, call to action, and final sale. So from a single business card, which will be tapped onto your customer's phone, You can take them through a complete journey of introduction, knowing your product, how to buy, and complete the buying journey, right? So that, and the fourth is we set up brand stores for corporates. So let's say you're a large enterprise and you have X number of channel partners and teams, and they buy merchandise with your branded logo. We would, set up a store for you with 500-700 SKUs. They could order a single piece, which will go co-branded with your logo and delivered directly to the customer, channel partner, wherever it's required. So these are the four services that we offer on SprintCart, and it's a single sign-on, which means that with a single user login or a username, you can access all the four services. So it becomes like an integrated platform as a service, and that's where I think the uniqueness of SprintCart today lies.
Okay. And so how big is the team now?
Oh, so when we started, we were so initially like any startup, the development of most of the version one was done by an outsourced IT company. When we sort of formed the company in September 22, there were just two people in the company, me and a general manager sales, right, who joined me to make pitches to customers, right? That's a two-member team. Of course, over the last 1.5 years, we built a small tech team of about 5 people, added another 2, 3. So today we are a team of total about 10 to 11 people managing the business, including me. So it's a very small team because, and of course, that's the benefit of a tech company, that you don't need a lot of people, because once you onboard, most of the things are typically on DIY and autopilot. So yeah, so we are a small 11
So what were the typical challenges when you moved from a 2-member team to a 12-member team? And I'm sure a lot of people listening into this podcast who are setting up or have set up a tech startup, what would be your advice in terms of building a tech startup successfully?
So honestly, Shailesh, I don't think I'm qualified to give any sort of advice. However, I can share my experiences.
Sure.
So, coming from a very traditional business, right, where we don't hire a lot of high-paying people. Just to give you a background, the oldest person in the organization in the print business probably is still drawing less than 1 lakh of rupees, right? And the pressure in our business, in the tech business, comes at 40,000-50,000, right? So it's a huge mindset change. So the first thing that number one that I had to bring about was a change in mindset. I had to break the glass ceiling in a lot of areas. But the number one thing that I would recommend, and I would say start with that, is you have to develop the attitude of being fearless. Now, coming from a completely non-tech business, my first question that I would get from anyone who was trying to sell my idea or dream for someone to join me, or even my customer, the first thing was that, boss, you don't understand anything of tech. You are not qualified to run a tech company. What makes you think you can pull it off? Second thing is, the minute you're talking to, all our customers are large enterprises, because our products are not sustainable for smaller companies. So we have to talk to the large cap guys. The minute you talk to a large cap guy, there are so many IT related compliances, right? Wherein their first question is, okay, you are the founder CEO. आपका CTO कौन है, CISO कौन है, ये कौन है? I said सब कुछ यही है, right? So that was so the first thing was they were trying not to ridicule me with all their, trying to be gracious. The question mark was, Ankul, how do you think you're going to pull it off, donning so many hats? And I think that every tech startup founder would face this when they're trying to get their first enterprise customer, is because an enterprise expects you to have a certain kind of organization structure. They expect you to have certain kind of functional heads. because they feel if I have a particular question, who do I speak to? In my case, for the first 6 months, I told them, you'll have to speak to me for everything, right? Some of them were comfortable, some of them were not, right? And that could have been the reason of delay of onboarding, right? But I would tell every tech founder, just follow the path. There is no quick route from 0 to 10. 0 to 10 is extremely difficult because you're running all by yourself. 10 to 100 is probably your next big challenge, but you're running with somebody, right? And there are people with you, even if it's one, two. But when you know you're not alone, it brings a lot of comfort, right? So
Absolutely.
0 to 10 is always going to be a big challenge. But then that's the area of people who are willing to bet on themselves, be absolutely fearless, and keep that constant belief that the product has value. And at some point, they will see light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that's my first tip to tech founders. That, and I'm sure everyone who succeeded will tell you the same thing. There's no, I mean, there's nothing new that I'm going to tell you. But when you people reinforce it, reinforces the same belief. It helps a lot of people who are listening to you. They listen, I was not alone. I'm in the same road, the same challenges, and I'm on the right track. So the only thing is stay the course and keep moving.
Okay. So I'm more keen to understand the team building process or the talent that you bring in. And I'm going to look at this one from both perspectives. So from your family managed business as well as your tech startup. What are the key differences and what do you focus on when you bring in talent or when you onboard talent into your organization?
So I think HR is the most critical function and a very underrated one as far as MSMEs are concerned. We don't give too much emphasis on having a professional HR team. Let aside a team, even having an HR consultant or a headhunter who can help us identify and get the right person for the right job. We just feel that, okay, मैंने एक post डाल दिया, I'll probably get a few free applications, उसमें से जो अच्छा लगा. It's not a very well thought of method. Though I feel hiring has now become extremely scientific and less skill based. Because you have to understand how to identify the right guy, what are the things to look for. Until today, that's a struggle for me as an MSME owner or even a tech founder. I have learned to believe that I don't have the skills to identify the right people. So I rely on experts who help us identify. So we work with a few consultants. And even in that, there is no right formula, as you would know, that many a times the guy looks brilliant on his CV, could be very great at communication, but may not be a good performer. Vis-a-vis someone who's a little muted while he's talking to you, could have inhibitions, but when he's given a task, he can really, really surprise you. So HR is extremely tricky, but you have to have a very open mindset when you're inviting someone to join you, right? You have to have, I think, empathy because the person is joining you from the outside, right? For him, it is a lot of risk because either he's leaving a good job, maybe a not so very good job, maybe, but still trying to be hopeful when he joins you, right? So it's very important that we are welcoming as an organization. We have processes to onboard them, and I would say we are still very, very weak at it. We're still trying to learn to do it. But if you say that, how did we hire? So I have someone in my team who has great experience in HR. So we use his skills to identify. He would define a JD, put it up, talk to the agency, do the first round of interviews. I come in at a very late stage because, as I said, it's not my forte. So I leave it to him. But I would suggest that everyone either takes help of a professional or an agency if they don't have an internal HR policy team or whatever. It's always better to sort of outsource this and get. And obviously, always believe that your first 120 days are just going to be an investment. You will only know the guy's worth, what you're paying, if you give him a good 2 quarters to really show results, right? And for me in the tech business, it's even harder because I don't have a benchmark to gauge, right? So if I tell how long will a particular task take, and if my tech lead says it's going to take 5 days, I know no better. And the question is, the team knows that. But that's a risk that, I mean, I don't
Absolutely.
have any other option. So I think being fearless is the best thing, that eventually your focus has to be building a great product and taking it to market. You don't have to be perfect as a CEO in every function. I may be good at finance, horrible at marketing. I could be great at operations, very bad at HR. That's fine. A single CEO cannot be great at everything. So initially, there are going to be issues, there are going to be mistakes, there are going to be learnings, and there are going to be successes. Uh, One thing that I say very loudly: never have this word called failure in your life. I have discarded that word many, many years ago from my dictionary. Either I learn or I succeed. So, and it's okay to fail, because think of it as a CEO. The good thing is you don't have to answer to it. So
Right.
why, what the heck, take the risk, fall, learn, and move on.
So I
Right.
want to
So
know, I want to know some of those learnings that you picked up along the way. You don't call them failures, but I'm sure there have been instances where you've stumbled, you've probably fallen and picked yourself up. Can you share some experiences with us?
I would say I have experiences from both the businesses, but I think the exciting ones for your audience would be the tech business. Uh, so when I started initially, honestly, it was just a dream in my head, backed by customers. Now, again, when people ask me how did you build the product, I take zero credit for building sprintcart, whether commercially successful or no, or the product offering, or any other sort of milestone that we may have achieved. I take zero credit for that. I give 100% credit to two things. One is my ability to listen to what my customers want, their wish list, right? And second, to my customers for sharing their wish list with me. I can't take credit for anything that we've achieved or created till now. Number one. Secondly, coming back to the challenges that I faced initially. Number one, I had listened to my customers. I had no clue how to deliver what they were hoping to buy, right? That was a big challenge. So, uh, but as I said, I was keen and determined to find a solution, because I spotted a blue ocean opportunity, that this is something a customer is telling me, and he also tells me that, listen, if you can solve this problem, you have 20 other opportunities in this industry, because ये मेरा problem नहीं है, ये industry का problem,
Correct.
right? So it was given to me in a conversation, but almost served to me in a platter. Now he may have had 10 conversations with 10 other people that he was comfortable sharing this with. Question: who's going to pick it up and start moving? So one thing is listening. Second is getting out of your comfort zone and actually taking the initiative. So I took that, but my challenge was, how the hell do I do it? I don't understand technology. To my good fortune, my brother-in-law is a technology architect. So I had a discussion with him. And when I explained to him the opportunity, he said, this is going to be the future, whether you decide to be a part of it, choose to be a part of it or no. With or without you, this is going to happen, right? So it's better that you decide to be a part of this rather than wait someone else to pick this up. So he helped me identify an
Mm.
agency who could help us develop this product. And yes, there were a lot of challenges, because it was very frustrating for that tech company to deal with someone who doesn't understand tech. So whenever he said this is a challenge, I said, why? I just want this done. But for me, it was learning that, I'm trying to understand a different industry. There are going to be challenges. I had to be extremely patient. And that comes to my next point, that for an entrepreneur, very, very important. to be patient. What people see of Sprintcart today is something that started 10 years ago. And it's not just overnight we developed this platform. It had hours of thinking, ideation, development, testing, showing it to customers, taking feedback, and going back to the drawing board. And I mean, that's the evolution process for every technology product. So everybody listening to me in that space can identify. But as I would say, the best thing is to, there'll be hundreds of challenges. I face challenges. There was a time that we hit a roadblock wherein the developing company said, listen, if we can't solve this, the whole product will fall flat on its face. It took us about 3 months to find a solution, right? But the thing was not to give up and tell the customer we're working on. So patience is something that I think that's a virtue. And honestly, as a person, I'm extremely impatient. But I've learned over a period with age to sort of try and be patient, listen to people. And I think that holds on. So even to young tech startup guys, very, very intelligent, but at the same time, low on patience. Just believe in yourself and have the patience. No matter how difficult the situation, there's always a solution. So in my head, I have this line that I tell my team, if there is a problem, there is a solution, right? So just wait for it, try, and you will get it.
Uncle, you brought up a topic that's very dear to me, and that's about stepping out of the comfort zone, right? And you mentioned that you could do it very effectively, and that's something that really drives you. But how do you manage and how do you create an atmosphere within the organization that really encourages the team members to really be willing to step out of their comfort zone and kind of get into that area of the unknown or something that they are not kind of very comfortable with? How do you create that kind of an environment in your organization?
So, this is very interesting and a great question, Sailesh. When we were changing, or rather, I would say when we were just initiating the tech business could not afford to have team members of its own. So everything was shared, right? So people within our old business were doubling up to serve the tech business, right? And obviously, people did know that they are working for two companies at the salary of one, right? And that's where your question strikes a chord because the only thing that worked at that point in time was number one, sharing my dream for the new business and how that dream of mine is going to benefit them by being a part of it. So the people in my traditional business come from a very different background, education, experiences, demographics, psychographics, and so on and so forth. So before Sprintcart could afford to pay salaries, everyone in the old print business was doubling up for the functions. So the same admin person was now filling up forms for the technology business. The accounts person was doing this. The sourcing guy was doubling up for the tech business. So yes, initially there was a lot of excitement. Oh, we are getting into something new because, and they took pride with that. But also what came along with that was a realization is that I'm doubling up for two people. So, how is that going to pan out? So number one is I constantly, and I think I've done that for very, very many, many years. I learned that from B school is you have to build bridges of strong bonds with starting with your tempo driver to the highest person within your organization. I think as Indians, I think human race looks only for love, appreciation, and care. If these three basic things that define your emotional quotient are addressed to a certain extent, I think people go far and beyond to support. So obviously, when I was getting into a new business, I had to speak a lot to my team as to what I'm doing because for the first 6 months, everything was done by me in my office by myself and they just heard ye karna, because I didn't expect them to understand, because I was trying to understand myself, right? I didn't know what I was doing. I was just following a thought process. Second thing is to explain to them hum kya kar rahe hain, something so radical, क्यों कर रहे हैं, and what's going to happen. So I was working pretty much as a solopreneur over there, taking decisions in an ocean which I had no knowledge of. So मैं उनको क्या बताऊं? That was a big challenge. So at some point in time, I started talking verbally, loudly about this business, having huddles and telling them, last 6 months or last 3 months, you've seen me do these mad things, but this is what the madness is all about. This is my vision. And thus, I mean, what I have observed is that a lot of entrepreneurs shy away from sharing their vision with their team, right? A lot of people feel that he's lost his buttons, or we don't understand what he's doing. Let's just run from here. There could be a lot of reasons of scaring away people, right?
Correct.
Second fear that entrepreneurs have, and that people have told me, if I share about what I'm planning to do, the next day they'll all ask for a raise, right? Now, these are the two fears. Either they'll run away, either they'll ask for a raise, or thirdly, they'll feel this organization is going to collapse because losing focus. When someone is running two businesses, I understand the focus comes into play. But when you're starting something new, it's very important to speak to your teams on a regular basis. So we have these huddles every day, 4-5 minute huddle. Like, let's say I come up with a great idea. I would call everyone involved in the business, no matter how insignificant, could be a person raising invoices. But I'll involve them here. What do you think? They may think nothing of it because they know nothing better.
Yeah.
But just the feeling of being included, I think, goes along. So it's important to share your vision with your team on a regular basis. And that brings the whole team together. And yes, there are challenges when you're running two businesses with different expectations, different salaries, different policies, extremely challenging because there'll always be a comparison.
Correct.
Right? But the only way of getting everyone's buy-in is to appeal to their logic. The only way to appeal to the logic is sitting down and trying to explain to them of the what, why, and how of it. Till the time you are not honest with your team, there'll always be that gray area. And where will you think, jab tak he doesn't come to me, I will not answer. Right? We feel that, अरे जब तक वो नहीं मांग रहा है, क्यों बात छेड़ना है?
Correct.
My logic is talk to him before he starts feeling uncomfortable, because the good guys will feel less valued and then they'll start looking out. So it's important to get everyone onto the same page, explain to them your vision, tell them how they are going to be part of your vision. They can't be neglected. It can't be the boss in the company making money.
Absolutely.
Get a 5-10% basic increment, irrespective of what you do. So I think, the question you asked me is extremely important, but has multiple answers and approaches.
Absolutely.
But the best thing, I think, is the more you talk to your team, the better it gets.
So what I hear you saying, Ankul, is as an entrepreneur or as a leader, some of the things that you believe are extremely critical are, one is, of course, transparency and communication, right? The second one is getting people aligned to the common vision and the goal. The third one is making people feel valued and making them believe that they have a significant impact on the business. And it's not just you, but the whole team that's really building this business together. And the fifth one probably would be in terms of recognizing and ensuring that people stay motivated and then kind of keep delivering. Would that kind of put that in a nutshell?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think one thing I didn't speak about was appreciation, recognition. So I think I've observed that we are extremely, extremely stingy with appreciating our people. And I think I try and do that as much as I can when it is due, obviously, rather than going overboard. It's very important to appreciate the small efforts that people make that go a long way to drive either efficiency, customer expectation, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
It is very important to applaud someone who's really gone out of the way and done something exceptional. It's very important to appreciate the smaller things that people do to to improve a small procedure. It may be about reducing errors, increasing efficiency, let's say cutting cost, something as improving customer experiences. Could be small things, right?
Absolutely.
Driving to final perfection. All of those things and all of those people, maybe a delivery boy did a great job by delivering things quicker. Even that needs to be appreciated amongst a group of people,
Hmm.
because I honestly feel that people just need an appreciation that they are valued for what they are doing every morning, and it's not taken for granted for what they're being remunerated. So I think
Completely.
appreciation goes a very way. And we have these small celebrations all the time, right? That someone did something, we just have a samosa chai party. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really do much, but makes the person feel extremely, extremely valued for his contribution.
Absolutely. And I think, like you rightly said, one is either we are very stingy with it, or perhaps we really don't really look at it as an important aspect, and then kind of move on instead of waiting, stopping, pausing, and celebrating those small wins, which go a long way. Uh, Ankul, one question now that it's been about what 3 decades now that your professional journey started.
Uh, uh, well, if I started way back as an intern in '93, so yes, 30 years of knowing the business. But if you're really saying being responsible for the business, I think I joined in 2001.
So about 23 odd years.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah,
What is the one thing that you would want to change in these last 23?
yeah. Honestly, I think if you ask me, in spot, that what are the things that I would change? Uh, Honestly, I think nothing that I did in the last 23 years, or nothing that I wouldn't do in the last 23 years, or omit in the last 23 years, would result into the me that I am today. Uh, Good, bad, ugly, learnings and the successes. I think I love my learnings more than my successes, because I read a wonderful uh, line someday that make your failures your best friends, because success is a lousy teacher, right? So I think nothing
Completely
that
winning.
in the last 23 years I would like to change in my professional journey, because the worst of it, if I get the opportunity to change, I would lose down on my best learning.
Already.
So I don't think that
Absolutely.
you may have sweet or bitter memories, is what I look at it. You can't have regrets, because none of those 23 years, anything that I take away from that would change the person that I am today. And I wouldn't want to change anything uh, of what it's made me today. So, and I think that's a perspective that I have learned from listening to the mentors that I follow on YouTube. That this is a very very common question. We always wonder, एक चीज जिंदगी में अगर मैं बदल सकता क्या होगा, right?
Correct.
But the real answer is that none of them would make you the person you are.
Okay. So, Ankul, I am really intrigued, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers would be. People find it difficult to manage one business. You are handling two, and two different types. One is family managed kind of print business, the other one is a tech business. How do you manage work life balance? How does the family fit into all this? When do you find time for them, and how do you manage it?
So, to be very honest, I can give you an answer which is extremely honest to my heart, which will be 100% shot down by my family if they were to listen to this. But from my side, it's extremely challenging when you're managing a extremely old business
Correct.
versus a very dynamic and new business, right?
Right.
So I'm toying two very different mindsets, right? Two different hats. And there are times in the same minute I am attending to a challenge in the old business. And in the next minute, I'm switching and answering and thinking or giving a solution for the tech business. So, yes, it becomes extremely challenging. I do carry a lot of my work home, but I do it at the time when my family is not available, which is generally early morning. So I'm an early riser. I do a lot of my thinking between 6 and 7 a.m. So my day is planned within that time. Uh, Also, when you talk about managing two businesses, it gets extremely difficult. Uh, Also, considering that I don't have a very strong, well-defined uh, managerial team in both the businesses right now.
Mhm.
Sprintcart is too young for me to have a very robust team that can function completely without me.
Correct.
Operations, yes, do take care of, but a lot of decisions on a day-to-day basis, which have far deeper impacts, need my attention. So I have to give it certain time. The print business again requires me for sales, marketing, development, innovation, and a lot of functional roles. So yes, it does get very challenging, and thus the family, fits in. I would say I start my day at about, let's say, 6 o'clock. It ends at about 11, but I try to leave work by about 5:30, right? And I have sort of managed to put the print business, at least the operation side, in autopilot mode, wherein I'm required very little time of the day.
Mhm.
And the most of the time that I spend in the print business is spotting opportunities, talking to customers, and fulfilling my role as a business development director. Uh, and then the latter half of the day is spent with Sprint Cart, looking at the developments, having customer meetings, ensuring things are going smooth, and just taking a stock of things. So I just feel honestly that when I think today, that how did the print business take 8 hours or 10 hours of my time, and today I'm able to give 4 hours each.
Mhm.
Maybe because I have the pressure of running the second business, uh, maybe I'm more efficient in the 4 hours that I put for print. Uh, yes, I have to admit that there has been a certain amount of sacrifice in the print business because of my non-availability. And yes, we have faced challenges there because I had to make a conscious decision which one is going to be more impactful in the next 5, 10, 15 years. So I had to take those tough calls and try to do the best that I can do with the print business. The 4 hours I've had. So yes, I mean I can't say I've mastered it. As I say, I'm a learning student of leadership, and I'm trying to find my ground to justify both. But the one thing that I have done while managing two businesses that ensure that I leave my office by 5 and try to be home by 7 o'clock after playing a certain sport or going to the gym. And then after 7 o'clock, I'm typically with the family from 7 to 10. And on the weekends, of course, second half of Saturday is a little light. So I try to engage with the family to do anything. And, for at least 1.5 days is given to the family in a week and post 7 o'clock in the day. Yeah, that's how my day looks like.
And then that brings me to obviously two businesses, double the stress, double the kind of effort that you need to put in. Anything that you do on the self-care part in terms of either stress management, some kind of meditation, or you mentioned gym, but anything else that you work on?
So I'll tell you what. You said the word stress, and yes, managing two businesses, managing two different P&Ls, two cost centers, does take away some sort of, or rather, that adds some pressure when you're managing two businesses and responsible for two
Correct.
P&Ls, and when there are months where things are not as great, it does get the better of you. But I think playing a sport engaging in my gym activities, running to the race course because I run with my pet, thanks to you. Uh, and so I take my pet for a walk. So that expanse at the race course gives me so much energy to reflect on the day gone by, the day to come, and just be with my thoughts for that 45 minutes. So I think that's my breakout time from everything. So my post 5:30 to 7 o'clock is pretty much with myself and my thoughts. So to me, that's almost meditative. Second thing is that, you know, I read a wonderful small book which had a saying that human beings live in two mindsets. One is a creative mindset, one is a survival mindset. And that was a great eureka moment for me, where I said that, okay, I have to choose which mindset do I want to be in. And I realized that everything that when I'm doing something creative, right, releases those happy hormones in us. And you just feel great. And with the technology business, I get the opportunity to, be in the creative mindset a lot. So uh, I'm extremely, extremely, I would say, blessed to have got this opportunity to be in a creative mindset while running the tech business because the opportunities are great. You learn every day new. So I think this is more of a stress buster for me, right?
Yeah,
Being doing every day, day in and day out, things that you like doing,
correct.
learning, meeting new people. So I think the tech business solves of what sort of gives me a lot of uh,
Wonderful.
opportunity de-stress. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ankul, so much. A lot more to talk about, but I think we are almost running out of time. But I'm sure probably we'll try and catch up one more time later. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experiences, sharing your insights. I'm sure the audience would really take a lot away from this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Sailesh, for giving me the opportunity to share my learnings and my successes. And I hope that everyone who listens to this is able to identify from this and have some take homes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank. We've loved having you on the show. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.